Hey, hey, welcome back. We are doing an Italian herb and cheese bread. So, whatever way you like to make your sub, this would be a dupe for that. So, we're going to start off by blooming our yeast. I'm going to use 1 cup of warm water, 3 tablespoons of sugar, and 2 tablespoons of yeast. I like to use active dry yeast. I always let it bloom. So, just throw that in there, let it get bubbly, foamy. If you've made bread, it's the same start just like any other loaf of bread. If you haven't made bread before, you just give it 5 to 10 minutes. You'll see what I'm talking about. It'll look foamy like it's alive. You're basically rehydrating the yeast and activating it. This is what your yeast is going to look like. You can tell it's all foamy. I'm getting my mixer out. We're going to mix in 1 more cup of warm water. And then I'm doing 4 cups of bread flour, depending on your elevation and what the weather is. And I don't know if you did the dance first or not. Your flour needs will vary when you make bread, but I usually start with 3.5 to 4 cups of flour, 3 tablespoons of melted butter, 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And then because I like all my seasonings distributed evenly, I put the seasonings into the dough instead of sprinkling it on the top. And I think that's a much nicer eating experience than just getting a little bit of flavor on the top. I will write this out in the description box for you. I don't have a recipe I can link because this is my recipe that I morphed from a lot of different recipes. So you don't have to worry about writing down the amounts or anything because I'll link it for you. But for the seasonings, it's oregano, garlic powder, parsley, and Parmesan. So I just take this, I throw it all into my mixer, and I let it mix up for a while. And then you can add up to a cup more of that bread flour. The less, the better, but you don't want your dough to be super sticky. You want it to be that nice textured consistency where it's pulling away from the sides, but it's not too dry where your mixer's kind of struggling and it's like flopping it around a lot. So it's still pretty loose. It's slightly sticky and it's still moldable. So you're going to take this dough and put it in an oiled bowl. I just like to move my dough around and oil the bowl that I used to mix it, unless I'm making another batch of bread. But I'll just do it like this, and then I'm not wasting another bowl. This gets covered and put in a warm place. If you don't have a warm place, I like to just warm my oven a little and then turn the light on. Make sure you shut the oven back off and then turn the light on. And you're going to let this proof until it doubles in size. That'll usually take like a half hour to an hour. There's a lot of yeast in here, so mine always overflows, and that's totally fine. And then we're just going to knead this for a little bit until you get everything worked into a nice ball and it's a nice workable dough. You can add in more flour. You don't want it to be real sticky at this point. I usually split this batch of dough into 5 loaves. So what I do is I get out my scale, I weigh the entire loaf, and then I just take that number and divide it by 5, and then I measure out each loaf. I've tried to just eyeball it and get it close and whatever, but there always ends up being a bigger one and a little one, and then the kids fight. So I just weigh them all out and make sure that they're all the same. And then I put them into my loaf holder, which I bought specifically for this because I decided I wasn't going to go to Subway anymore and I needed to replace that. So I went all in when I started searching for recipes for these, and I ended up with this. I don't know. You'll see it in a second. It's like a mesh thing that helps to form the loaves, and then it gives it that texture on the bottom like Subway has. So they must have this type of thing too. But it's really nice, and I use it every time I make these. If you don't have this thing for the loaves, and I don't expect that most people will have this, you can either take the loaves and put them just on a sheet pan. They'll probably spread out a little bit and be a little bit wider than taller. You could put them on the sheet pan and tent foil up around the edges. I've done that before, so it'll kind of hold it like you would make a cradle out of the foil and put them in there that way, and that works too. You could make one giant loaf out of this and just cut it up. You could do it in bread pans. You'd probably get 2 good bread pan loaves out of this. And that would work too. So it's up to you. I really like the experience of making the subs, and then everybody gets their own sub. So that's also why I have this little thing that I put them in. but any way would work, and it's still going to convey the sandwich to your mouth. Alrighty, oil the tops of those so they don't dry out. Cover it with something, and then you're going to go back into the oven and let these rise. So you're doing like a warm setting again to proof these, and you want them about double again. So for the second rise, it's about 30 minutes to 45 minutes. This is what they're going to look like when they're doubled. Pull them out. They're going to go into the oven at 425. You're going to cook them for about 12 minutes. While they're cooking, you can get your cheese shredded up. I like to use the Colby Jack cheese because that's what it looks like they use at Subway. So when they've been in for about 10 to 12 minutes, you want to pull them out. They're going to look like this. They're very pale. I put the cheese on at this point because when I was putting the cheese on right away, when the dough was still just dough before it baked at all, what was happening was it was like almost too heavy for the bread and it was coming out pretty flat. And that's fine. And it's not a big deal, but I like them a little poofier. So I wait until the loaf is risen and set, and then I'll put the cheese on that, and then I throw it in the oven and finish cooking it, which it's only about 5 more minutes after that. You just want to make sure it temps out around 200. I do like to pull mine out when they reach that internal temperature. If you want your tops a little bit darker, leave them in a little longer. I've put the broiler on and let that cheese get really bubbly. But when my family eats these, we always toast them. So I leave them a little less done so that when we toast them, it doesn't get overdone. So that's just our preference. If you don't toast your subs or you like them extra toasty, then at this point, before you pull them out of the oven, you can get them a little browner on the top. So here's the done loaf. It's delicious. We all made subs that night. They hold up pretty well. They taste good. Like that, it's a little bit browner now on the top because we toasted them. These are so good. I'm going to make another batch this week because that looks delicious. There's my husband's. He's got the meat. That's all I got for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you try this recipe. I highly recommend it. I think it's delicious. I make it quite often, but not often enough. If you want to watch some other videos between now and my next upload, I'll pop those up on the screen, and I will catch you next time. Bye.